Hey, good morning, everybody. Dr. Kathleen Webb here, Greater Hartford Wellness. Good morning on this beautiful day of summer. Today, we are talking about empathy. And empathy, oh gosh, everyone could use a little bit more empathy for ourselves and in the world. And so, um, part of doing these Friday chats is talking about things that are feeling very relevant of today, now, and across our country. I think we could all use some lessons on empathy. So that's what we're doing today. We'll start with a quote, and then we're going to talk about a way to understand empathy that I like to use, understanding for myself and with clients. And we're going to talk about ways to practice it and do better with it. We could always use some practice. Okay. Our quote today is: empathy is seeing with eyes of another, listening with the ears of another, and feeling with the heart of another. That's an unknown writer. All right. When I talk about empathy with folks and I'm studying empathy, I like to use Teresa Wiseman's aspects, factors of empathy. And so I think we can all agree we like empathy. We like to get empathy from other people. The difference between empathy, we'll start with this. The difference between empathy and sympathy is um, sympathy is someone feeling bad for someone else. They're sorry for someone else. Um, Empathy is you're with someone in the struggle, you're feeling with them. And it's a beautiful, wonderful way to create stronger connection, to improve and strengthen the relationship, and just great for humankind, honestly, right? And empathy can be practiced with everybody. Empathy actually can be practiced with ourselves. That's a whole other talk. um, Empathy can be practiced with someone you don't know. It can also be something practiced, obviously, with someone you're closest with. So let's talk about the pieces of practicing some really good empathy. So there's 4 pieces. Went ahead and put it on a sheet here today, and this is in the handout. Okay, so we're just going to run through these and talk about, and I'm going to use an example. So real well practiced empathy includes perspective taking. So what's it like to be in the other person's shoes? I think that's often one of the first things that we think about with empathy, right? We try to teach to our kids. Secondly, staying out of judgment. So not jumping to, oh, well, they should have done it differently, or, oh, you kind of asked for that, or I would have done things differently. Staying out of judgment, because that's not what being there for someone is about. Recognizing emotion. This is a really important one in that the emotion, the common humanity of any given emotion, is what really connects us with each other. And so, even though someone might be talking about a situation that you've never dealt with before, you can certainly connect with an emotion that's happening for them, and because you've experienced that emotion too at some point in time. It doesn't matter what the situation is. Communicating emotion, so recognizing and having a mutual understanding of, oh wait, that's the emotion that you're dealing with, right? And then mindfulness. That's a piece from Kristen Neff, who does a lot of studying around mindfulness. And so mindfulness has to do with being there in the emotion, observing it, and tolerating it, which is so hard to do. And also not kind of jumping in the dark hole with the other person, but just being with. And so if our own emotion gets too aroused, when you're trying to support somebody else, it's going to be really hard to maintain that empathy, because then it becomes about you, right? So it's sort of having boundary with observing, being with, feeling with, but not having that stray over to your own stuff. Okay. So I'm going to use an example just to quickly explain all these pieces of empathy. Okay. So let's pretend you are talking to a friend, and they really want to talk to you, and they feel really, really awful and vulnerable around something that happened with work. with their boss, and it did not go well. So the first thing that we might do is, they're explaining the situation that happened, and we imagine what it's like to be in their shoes, right? We imagine what, their boss being reprimanded. We can imagine what that must feel like, right? Being reprimanded by a boss at work, like, ooh, does not feel good, right? Staying out of judgment. So your friend is talking about the play-by-play about what happened, and it's really easy for us to say, well, I would have said this differently, or oh my gosh, I can't believe you did that, or I can't believe you said that, right? It's irrelevant, right? Because the whole point of you being empathic in that moment is to support your friend. And so that judgment stuff has no place there. And in fact, it drives a wedge between really supporting your friend, recognizing emotion, and then communicating that emotion. And so it might be helpful to identify and even name, if they're not naming a feeling, that you're naming a feeling, like, oh my gosh, wow, that must have been so embarrassing. Is that embarrassing? Gosh, how did that feel? And really get from them the most salient emotions that are popping up, because that, like I said earlier, identifying that emotion can help you really be with them and understand where they're at. So maybe it's fear, or whatever it is. And then the mindfulness piece. So the mindfulness is, you're imagining you're in their shoes. You're imagining this argument they had with their boss. You can imagine being in that situation. It feels awful. It feels very vulnerable. And maybe you've had a similar situation where you felt that way. But it's really, really important to not jump in that hole of like when that happened to you, because you're really there for the person that you're trying to support, right? And so it's staying with them. And sometimes we have to make some boundaries around that. Sometimes it gets too intense, and we kind of need to get some distance from that. But being aware of that is really, really important. So as you might think, like many things we talk about on Friday Chats, this is very much a practice. Practice, practice, practice. We're not going to get it right all the time, and that's okay. And it's up to us to go back to the person and say, yeah, I feel like I kind of missed it. I feel like I may not have been supporting you in the way that I would have liked. So I just want to talk about that and kind of heal from that, right? Because this is the thing. We all know when we are sharing something with someone that feels very personal, very vulnerable, we know the difference of how it feels when we're really feeling being heard and feeling like you're getting empathy from somebody. That's a very different experience than when we don't feel heard. It feels pretty awful. And so knowing the difference between those two based on experiences that we've had is so important. It's so, so important. And so I encourage you to practice it. The empathy handout goes over these pieces, these 5 pieces, and encourages you to practice the empathy. Because you know what? When we're empathic with others, it's contagious, and people can practice empathy with other people. And it needs to spread in this world right now, right? Definitely. Okay, so as we're closing today, we are at Greater Heart for Wellness. I'm going to take a little break from Friday Chats this summer, but we're going to come back to you at the end of the summer, and we're going to be coming up with some great topics to talk about and learn about. And if there's some things that you would like to learn more about, we want your suggestions, okay? We're always open to suggestions. So let us know on Facebook, on Instagram, drop us an email. We're all ears, okay? So enjoy the summertime, and we look forward to getting back with you towards the end of the summer. Have a great weekend. Bye.